Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. This week's lesson is all about playing a sophisticated sounding lead by yourself. You don't need any jam track or any accompaniment. And what's really cool about this is what we're doing with diminished chords in particular. If you've struggled with diminished chords, now we're not playing chords, we're playing single string things, but I'm going to explain the diminished chord and how you use it in this type of music. There's 3 instances and we're going to go over all 3. But there's a whole lot of information in this, a lot of takeaways. And so if you'd like to watch the part 2 video, I've got the lesson split into 2 halves, and this video will go over the first half. But if you'd like that second half, as well as the tablature and the on-screen tab viewer, which is interactive, you can slow it down, all of those features. You can get those things by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP358. All right, so I'm excited about this week's lesson because there's going to be a lot of takeaways, a lot of big aha moments, light bulbs, whatever you want to call them, but there's going to be a lot of value in this lesson. So I hope you're excited about learning some new things. We're going to be taking a look at playing a lead, a more sophisticated sounding lead, without anything underneath it, no jam track. And I find myself doing a lot of this lately around the house, more than I used to do, for sure. And I don't know if that's just where I'm at in my guitar journey or what, but I really enjoy playing lead parts without anything underneath them because it's helping me develop my ear. I've gotten a lot better at it just in the last, I don't know, year, I would say. So even if you're uncomfortable doing it, just take some of these licks that you're going to learn in this and use that as a launch pad to start doing that on your own. What'll happen is when you get out with other people and you start playing with a band, you're going to sound that much better because you can technically do it without them, right? So we're going to be playing this in the key of A, and we're going to be going over lots of crazy chord combination. Well, they're not really crazy. They're just out of the norm of the 1-4-5. We're going to be throwing in diminished chords, and by the end of this, you're going to totally have a new appreciation and understanding for diminished chords. So be prepared for that. Okay, so we're in the key of A, and instead of me calling out the chords, all the chords up front, I'm going to call them out as we go to them or go through them. I think that's going to make more sense. So the first thing that I played was that over the 1 chord. So our A is our 1 chord. Let's look at that. We're sliding into that 6th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 2nd string, then we go to the 7th fret 3rd string, back to the 6th fret 3rd string, and then 5th fret 2nd string. So all together. And then I play the A triad. So let's break just that first part down. What is that? Well, all of that represents the A chord. Now, I never actually well, I guess I did play an A chord at the end of it. But even if I didn't play the A chord and just stop there, your ear kind of is filling in what should be the A chord. You're hearing the A chord underneath that. Now, the notes that I'm playing are really all just off. I'm thinking about this A major bar chord. That's where we use the E shape out of cage. We bar on the 5th fret, all 6 strings, but you don't need to play that. In fact, all you really need if you're going to play an A chord is just that triad there, the top 3 strings out of that bar chord. So when I'm playing this, I'm just picturing this triad and what I can play around that triad. You'll start to learn licks that you can play off of triads. And so that's the first thing. Then we go to the 4 chord, which is the D chord. Now I'm playing a D9 chord. And remember, when you're playing a chord, as long as you're staying major, you know, we wouldn't want to throw in a D minor chord, but I could play a D6 chord, a D7 chord, a D9 chord, any of the number versions of this D, and it's going to work. It's going to flavor it a little different, but so I'm going to a D9. So we started with, then for the D9, most of the same notes. We're going to slide in. This time I'm just using a bar there on the 5th fret. I'm going to slide into to the 3rd string, 5th fret, 2nd string, and then 7th fret, 3rd string, back to the 5th fret, 3rd string, and then 5th fret, 2nd string. So we have, and then I play that top part of that D9 chord. Now this threw me when I first learned this, because when I look at this, I'm picturing an A minor chord, right? That's like an A minor triad, and it is. That's correct. It is an A minor triad. It's also a D9 chord, the top part of a D9 chord. If you look at a D9, look at these 3 strings. Same 3 strings. So it depends on the bass note underneath it. You know, if it's a D note under it, you're getting a D9. If there's an A underneath it, you're getting an A minor chord. I'm not going to go any further in that, but you just have to trust me. Within a D9 chord, there is an A minor chord. Okay, but what's nice about it, little takeaway is, if you're playing a blues, and that's your 1 chord, there's your 4 chord right there. So they're right beside each other. You can keep that bar down for both of them. So back to the beginning. 1 chord, 4 chord. Now we're going to go back to the 1 chord, and I'm going to play. So let's look at that. So we go back to that 6th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 2nd string, and then 7th fret 2nd string. We're going to walk it down chromatically. 7, 6, 5 on the 2nd string. And then 7th fret 3rd string down to the 6th fret 3rd string. Now what is this chromatic walk down? Well, when I was picturing this, I was playing the 1 chord, which is the A, and I was thinking about or visualizing the A major pentatonic scale pattern 2, which is here. That lays right into that chord shape. In my visualization, I can totally see that. So what you can do to even take it to another level is to fill in the notes in between. So instead of me just playing the actual notes, I can play some of those notes that are really technically incorrect, but chromatically they work. Now those are passing notes. You wouldn't want to land on a note like that. You wouldn't want to land there. It's going to sound wrong, but as a passing note it does work. Same on the 1st string. You can start experimenting with that. Just remember to kind of play it and then move away from it quickly. So all of that is the 1 chord. Now we're going to do something really cool. This is something that will be a big light bulb moment for a lot of you, a big aha moment. We're going to go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. So we played the one chord, we played the 4 chord, we're back at the 1 chord, and just like any traditional blues, we're going to go back to the 4 now. But instead of me going straight into the 4, I'm going to play the 2-5-1 chord progression of the 4 chord. And so what that means is we're going to the 4 chord, which is a D. So what is the 2-5-1 of a D? Well, it would be an E minor, A, and then the D. So in actual fact, what happens is you switch keys just for that moment. You're completely switching keys and you're playing in the key of D just to get to the D chord, and then you're back in the key of A. I know that seems weird, but that happens a lot in jazz. So let me play the chords. Just listen to this. You have the 1 chord, 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Then you have your 2, 5, 1 of the 4 chord. So when I said 1, that's the D, it becomes the 1. So do you see what I mean by that? So we've just kind of switched keys just for that moment. Now we're back into where we started. But that's just a very kind of clever way to get you to the 4 chord. So you can remember that going forward, especially when it comes to playing lead. And that's what I did. Let's look at this lead. There's your 4 chord. That's the 1 chord, and then look this. That's all I did. I went E minor, A to the D. And then I play the D9. All right, so let's look at that lead breakdown. So it goes like this. So I'm sliding up to that E minor. It's your E minor triad. So that's the 7th fret 3rd string, sliding up to the 9th fret on the 3rd string, 8th fret 2nd string, 7th fret 1st string. Now we're walking it down to the 5th fret 1st string. Now walk past the 6th note, or 6th fret down to the 5th fret. So all together we have. All right, so backing up we have the E minor, the A, which is the 5 of the D. We go to the 7th fret 1st string, and then watch this. So what that is, 6th fret 2nd string, 7th fret 2nd string, 5th fret 1st string, and then once I'm there, I'm into the D chord. So what you have then, you have your 2, down to your 5, remember your A is your 5, and then you walk into the 1, which is the D. So experiment with that. When you're playing a blues, instead of just playing the 1 chord to the 4 chord, play the 2-5-1, getting you into the 4 chord, where your 1 is the 4 chord. It sounds crazy even when I say it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let me back up from the beginning and play us up to that point. So we have... Alright, and then I hit the D9 chord. And by the way, that D9, that's the D7 chord shape, if you're familiar with that in first position. These three fingers where you got your middle finger on the 5th fret, 5th string. And then I take my pinky and I bar strings 1 and 2 on the 5th fret. That's how I'm playing that 9. That's how I've always played a D9. Okay, so you have your D9, and then we're going to go back to the 1 chord. This is another takeaway, another light bulb. This is where diminished chords come into play. To get from the 4 chord back to the 1 chord, you can play an A diminished 7 in this case. It would be the diminished 7 of whatever key you're in, whatever the 1 chord is. So A diminished 7. And then back to the 1 chord. See, you got your D, you have your A diminished 7, and then back to your A. See how nice that transition is? The diminished chord is a transition chord between 2 chords. That's how I always think of it. It's just a transition. It's a little bridge. So a bridge between the 4 chord back to the 1 chord. Okay, so we played that D9, and then I went to get us back to the 1. That's that A diminished 7 chord. This is an arpeggio that we're playing out of that. So the arpeggio is just where you pick the notes out of the chords. Let me show you how to play that. So we're 3rd fret, 5th string to the 5th fret, 5th string. Middle finger goes down on the 4th fret, 4th string. Then my index finger goes down on the 2nd fret, 3rd string. So you have... Now from here, we're going to put our ring finger down on the 5th fret, 3rd string, and we're going to walk it up. This is a classic diminished arpeggio shape here that we're playing. And this will look familiar to some of you, but 5th fret, 3rd string, 4th fret, 2nd string, 2nd fret, 1st string. So from the bottom of that, we have... Now that's going to be tricky in the beginning, but just practice it. In 30 minutes, you'll be able to do it fairly easily. Maybe not up to tempo. Well, you set the tempo. That's the nice thing about this. So you can play this as fast or as slow as you want. Now the timing of this, these are triplets. Starting from this note, so the first note is not part of the triplet, but then once we get to this 5th fret, 5th string, it's triplet, triplet, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like 3 or 2 little waltzes in there. And you'll see that in the tablature. You'll see the little line with the 3 over it. That's what that means. Okay, so that gets us here. Now, to get us back to the 1 chord, so that's all that diminished, A diminished 7 chord stuff. To get us back to the 1 chord, I played that. Now this is a Jerry Garcia thing, and I've always been a huge fan of Jerry Garcia, but he does these little pull-offs quite often. If you listen to his playing, you'll hear those. And what I'm doing is I've got my pinky on the 5th fret, 1st string. I've got my index finger on that 2nd fret, which is that last note we played, that 2nd fret, 1st string. And then I've got a finger on every fret in between. And what I'm doing, this can be a little tricky, and I don't use this lick often in lessons, but I've got my thumb behind the neck, and so I'm not doing this, in other words. I'm not holding the neck like I normally would. I've kind of got my thumb back there so that I can get the right leverage. And it's a pivot move like this, where you're pivoting off of that index finger. So you're going to have to play around with that if you're not familiar with it. But it's a series of pull-offs. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2. I only picked it once. Okay. Now after that I went. So that's 4th fret, 2nd string, 7th fret, 2nd string, to the 5th fret, 2nd string. Now what is this? This is another takeaway. This lesson is just full of these. So when you're playing, when you're going into a chord, it doesn't matter if it's a 1, 4, whatever. You can always play the note below it, and then above it in the scale, and then land on a note. And so I could have done it right there as well, because that's the A note. Actually, that would have made just as much sense. So you can play around with that. You can go down the entire scale doing that. Playing a note above and a note, a note below and a note above, and then landing on the note. It's just sort of a way of resolving on a note that sounds wrong a little bit in the beginning, but then as soon as you hear it, you go, okay, that was intentional. Okay, so let me back up from the beginning. We'll play up to that point. So we have... Okay, now so we're back to the one chord, and that's what I did. I just played the chord, right? 3 notes right in the middle of that bar chord. Sliding into that 6th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 2nd string, back to the 6th fret 3rd string, and then ring finger down on the 7th fret 4th string. All right, so now we're gonna go from the 1 chord to the 2 chord. So the 2 chord in the key of A, that would be your B minor. And if you don't know what I mean by the 2 chord, 4 chord, what these numbers are, it's just the major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Put a number to those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so forth. So our 1 chord is the A, our 2 chord is the B. The 2 chord is always a minor chord, unless you change it, which you can do, but by default it's a minor chord. Okay, so we're going from the 1 chord to the 2 chord, but there's a diminished chord you can throw in between those 2 chords. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play. Hear how that works? 1, diminished, to the 2. Now that diminished chord would be like an A sharp diminished, well technically I guess a B flat diminished, but either way, the way that you can kind of tell what a diminished chord is, well, one way you can tell is where your pinky is. Like if you're playing the chord in this shape, like when I said A diminished 7 before, my pinky's on the A note. Now it's going to walk up and be playing here, which would be your A sharp or your B flat. Now I know it doesn't matter so much because you can actually play that same shape, and as long as you go up 3 frets or down 3 frets, you can take that same shape and play the same version of the chord, and then obviously your pinky's on a different note. But that's just one way to find it. If you're playing off of this chord shape, that E chord shape, you can pay attention to where your pinky is if the chords are played around that E chord shape. Easy way to say it. Okay, so we're going from the 1 to the diminished, A sharp diminished 7 to the 2. So what I played, that's where we just were, and then I went. So look at that. That's that diminished chord that I was just explaining. The A sharp diminished or the B flat diminished. So our ring finger was on the 7th fret 4th string. We're going to slide it up 1 fret, and then we're going to play these 2 notes exactly where they were, which would be the 6th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 2nd string. And you can already hear by changing that 1 note, now we're in diminished territory. And then I'm going to play the 7th fret 2nd string, and then there's a hammer-on pull-off between the 5th fret and the 7th fret there on the 2nd string, 7th fret 3rd string, 6th fret 3rd string, and then back to the 7th fret 4th string. And now that I hear that, I probably should have put that as the that note as the 8th fret 4th string. Either one is going to work, but that diminished arpeggio then goes like this. And I slid up to this note, which would be the 9th fret 4th string. And the reason for that is I'm picturing that minor chord. That's using the E minor shape. See, look, you take your E minor, first position, slide it up, capo here on the 7th fret. You've got your E minor shape, but I'm playing a B minor when I play it up here. Okay, I realize that's a lot, and this is getting probably maybe too into the weeds for a lot of you, but if you can walk away with a few ideas from this, this will be huge. And by the way, if you're not a premium member, look into it. You have access to the tablature and the on-screen tab viewer, which allows you to slow things down. You can loop sections and all of that. Little plug for that, and it adds a lot of value to this. So you don't have to sit and listen to me talk through it every time you want to learn it. Okay, let's take it from... Actually, let's take it from the beginning and play up to that point. right, so now we're at that 2 chord, the B minor. Look at that. I put my ring finger there on the 9th fret 4th string, and then I can just bar on the 7th fret. Strings 3, 2, and 1. All right, so now that we've played the 2 chord, or that B minor chord, I want to get back to the 1 chord. The most obvious answer to that would be 2, 5, 1. Just like we did over the 4 chord, I could play the B minor, that's the 2 of the 1 chord, which is the A. The 5, which would be an E chord, and then back to your A. I could have done that, but I wanted to throw in another diminished possibility just to give you these 3. These are basically the 3 main diminished chord uses that I've found anyway, that I've heard in music. So after the 2 chord, instead of playing the 5 chord, I played, which basically is the 5 chord. I'll explain that in a minute. It's very similar, 1 note difference really. But that would be an A flat diminished 7. And some of you are going, wait, your pinky's up here. How is that an A flat? Well, remember, every 3 frets you can play the chord. So I could go down 1, 2, 3. Look at where my pinky is. It's an A flat note, right? Same chord. I was just playing it in a different position. So I played the B minor, and then I went, so played that diminished chord, or the A flat diminished chord, and then back to the 1. See how it resolves so nicely? That to here. Listen to that versus the E chord. I could have went E, A. That resolves nicely, but this has just a different tension to it. It's still tension and release, but it's a different sound. All right, so let me make a quick review over these 3 diminished chord shapes. Once you understand these, you totally understand diminished chords and how they work. The first one is going from the 4 chord back to the 1 chord. So if we're playing in the key of A, our 4 chord is a D. So D, A diminished 7, back to the A. See how it resolves? D, A diminished 7, A. So it's the diminished chord of the chord you're going to. So the A diminished 7 chord if you're on the 4 chord. That's the first one. The second one is going from the 1 chord to the 2 chord. What's the in-between chord would be A sharp diminished 7 to the 2. Or B flat diminished 7, however you want to look at it. The third one would be going from the 2 back to the 1 chord. So that would be the B minor in this case. We throw in the A flat diminished 7 back to the 1 chord, or the A. Or you could look at it this way, the 5 chord, because the 5 chord gets you back to the 1 chord as well, right? So 5 chord could be your E, then an in-between chord, and then back to the 1 chord. That in-between chord is that A flat diminished 7. If you understand those 3 diminished chord concepts and how to use them, you really basically understand diminished chords. That's it in a nutshell, at least the way that I've come across it in all my years of playing. So we have the B minor chord, and then we have that A flat diminished chord, which I don't know if I showed you the fingerings of that. These 3 fingers are making the D7 chord shape. You can think of that down in first position. Slide it up so that your pinky is on the 7th fret 1st string. And then your index finger goes down, in this case, on the 6th fret 4th string. So I didn't play all 4. I went 4, 3, 2, and then I went, slid with my pinky up to the 9th fret 1st string, just to embellish that. And then watch this. That's the same technique I just explained, right? Where you play 1 note below it, 1 above, and then the note in the scale. So I came up here, went down to an A flat, 1 note below it, up to the 7th fret 1st string, and then to the 5th fret 1st string to resolve on that A. So we have B minor, and then back to the 1 chord. And then I went, little turnaround there. Let me show you that, and we'll wrap up this part of the video. We'll move on to we'll save the rest for the premium members. Okay, so this part is where I bar the first 3 strings on the 5th fret. I'm gonna play strings 3 and 1. I'm hybrid picking on the 3rd string with my pick, plucking on the 1st string with my ring finger. I'm gonna do a hammer on there to that 6th fret 3rd string. And then 7th fret 3rd string. Remember, I'm playing strings 3 and 1. I'm keeping that 5th fret 1st string the whole time. And then I'm going to play the 5th fret 1st string with my ring finger. so that I can come down here to the 4th fret 3rd string and then back. So yeah. Okay. Oh, one other thing. There's a 7 chord, which gets us, that's a transition chord. I could have played an A7 here. I could have different ways to play it, but I'm playing it like this. Index finger on the 3rd fret 1st string, 5th fret 2nd string, and then 6th fret 3rd string. And that's going to get us into that next part, which I'm saving for part 2. A lot of information in this lesson. Hopefully you've got some awesome ideas for how to use diminished chords. Even though we weren't playing chords in this, we were playing the chord arpeggios, or picking the notes out of those chords. And because of that, we don't even need anything underneath it. We're defining the music as we play a lead like that. Let me back up and play through this one more time. That'll wrap up this part 1 video, and then I'll see you in part 2 for the next section of this. And remember, if you're not a premium member, you would have access to the tablature, the on-screen tab viewer, 10 years worth of archived lessons just like this one. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, click the alert bell, and you'll be notified in real time as I put these lessons out, which I do every week. Okay, so here we go from the beginning, and then we'll see you in part 2.